Oops.
So I'm just going to ask, is everyone familiar with the Wolfenstein games? Apparently not. No one knows what they are. You just came here for fun. Can we just see maybe a little clip of what we're about to talk about today?
Oh.
Yeah.
Das ist er. Gute Arbeit, Männer.
Das ist
Schau, schau.
ist die Motion Capture Szene.
General?
Okay.
Oh, schön.
Wirklich.
Platzgewinn.
So we'll be talking today about Frau Engel, the villain of Wolfenstein. Who here has played Wolfenstein?
Cherish me.
Did you like Frau Engel?
Doors part.
You liked her very much. Okay, so we have here Nina Franoszek, who played Frau Engel. She came all the way over here from Hollywood to talk to us about how she went about this. And Jens, who sort of came up with her. Is that correct?
Yeah, it was me and my co-writer Tommy. We developed, so we created the character of Frau Engel for the first Wolfenstein game that we did, which was called Wolfenstein: The New Order. And then with the idea that she would become so she was kind of a minor villain in the first game, but we were setting her up to be the major villain in Wolfenstein II: The New Colossus.
Okay, so what I'm kind of interested in, because Wolfenstein is a game that has a very particular style. I mean, it's very over the top. It's very sort of B-movie-esque, pulpy, colorful, big, and of course lots of Nazis. So what kind of villain do you need in such a game? I mean, how do you come up with that?
Well, there are so many ways of doing it, of course, but the way we look at it is that we try to create villains that can match with the protagonists, so that even though we are kind of making this story on a grand canvas, it's still characters that are relatable but also powerful. So that we try not to make any villains kind of ridiculous or silly. So because then that kind of undermines their power in the story. So we want the villains to be as strong as possible and the protagonists to kind of fight against that.
So for me, I mean, there's lots of pretty famous video game villains, you know, like Bowser, GLaDOS, LeChuck. What distinguishes a pretty good villain from a really, really good, very, very memorable villain, would you say?
I don't know. I don't tend to categorize it in terms of villain that strongly. I mean, of course, you need opposition in the game, right? So there is a need for people to represent that opposition. But it's not like we think about the villains as a villain and the heroes as a hero. We think about them more as characters and how they fit into what puzzle piece they bring to the greater story. And then we just try to make everyone as powerful and as interesting as possible within the framework.
But you've worked, I mean, before you did Wolfenstein, you did games like The Darkness and Riddick, so you did have some experience before in working with evil characters.
Yes. Very much so.
Did she differ from that? I mean, is there something you learned?
Oh
from
yeah,
it?
yeah. They're all different, and they're all, and you don't want to repeat yourself, right? So yes.
And why? Well, she's a woman. I mean, this is there's a sort of tension between her and Blazkowicz at some point.
Well, at least from her point of view. I don't think he's very interested.
Yeah. How come you did make her into a woman?
Sorry, one more time?
Why is she a woman? Why did you go for a female character here?
Well, we tried to have a pretty even gender division of our characters in the game, with the, I guess, exception of the Nazi cannon fodder, who tend to be male because we couldn't afford to do 2 movesets. Yeah, no, I think she's very inspired by these. When doing the research on the sort of Nazi war machine and the people in it, you will always find these people who, even though it's not like the Nazi army was strongly populated by women, but there are always a few who find their way in there because they're so committed to the cause. And that's very much kind of how we were thinking about her.
Okay. So, Nina, so you're a German actress, but you're based in Hollywood. And what kind of roles do you normally do?
When you work as a movie actor or television actor, you usually cast more how you look like. And for some reason, I come across warm. So although I'm German, and Hollywood also casts Germans and likes to cast Germans as Nazis, these are not parts that I'm cast in.
Oh, I
never played a Nazi. They always ask me if I speak French. So I play a lot of French roles, and a lot of Scandinavian roles, and a lot of Russian. But how I come across in the world of acting, they don't see me as German. They see Heidi Klum as German. So someone who's colder, and basically I think in casting you see actors more as stereotypes when you cast them in different nationalities. So it was interesting, first of all, to get the offer of this role, but also the difference is with motion capture.
So let me just, how did that happen? So, and you have never acted in a video game before. So normally you do movies, you do TV series, you did Mad Men.
I'm a theater actor, do television.
Yeah. And all of a sudden you get this email from your agent, and he says, look, do you want to play a Nazi woman in a video game?
Yeah.
So what happened there?
I said no. I was afraid of it. I had never played a video game. I was one of these people thinking that video games are really bad for people, and that I can't play a Nazi in a video game. And then after some time.
Well, they sent you a picture, didn't they?
Yes, they sent me also later after I met him.
Yeah.
They sent me a picture that was then the start to work on the character, but.
So what made you change your mind?
I tell you in a minute. So that was the picture that I got, but I have to tell you before I got the picture, I met with them.
Yeah.
And then I asked Jens, what are you doing? And he showed me the visuals on his computer, and I had no idea. I didn't know cinematic video games. I was so blown away by the visual, and I was like, man, that looks like Avatar. That looks like real. And then I was completely convinced by the script. So I had no idea, why do you get a script that is, 3 hours long for a video game? For me, that video games were shooters, but I did not know about the storytelling. And that script, I have to say, was better than Inglourious Bastards. And I was like, oh my God, I can play the role of Christoph Waltz as a woman with a boy toy. I'm in. And then also the fact that they've been really nice. I did not know. I did the audition. And so we have a second director, Tom Keegan.
Yeah.
So I thought Tom is the director. I didn't know who he was. So I used him as my victim.
Oh, there's the laugh already. That's the laugh.
And he got really scared.
Yeah.
But I didn't register that as scared because he just looked at me like that.
Yeah, but I had to. The problem is that I'm an incredibly private person. Like, I don't like to be on stage and do stuff. So I don't like to be targeted or singled out ever. Like that's my worst nightmare is like being at a comedy club or something and the comedian is like doing something with me. That's my worst nightmare. So we're sitting in this little, like it's an office space basically. I'm sitting there on the floor and I'm making a video so that we can review afterwards when Nina is auditioning. And she just somehow brings me into this and like walks right up to me and is screaming in my face kind of. And I don't know how to react to that because I don't want to make you think that we can't handle the pressure, you know? So I have to sit there and kind of be brave even though inside my mind I'm totally freaking out. So, yeah.
Yeah, that was our first meeting, basically, and then I got the picture.
Nice.
But, but with the picture, so that's, I'm not sure, but are there any actors in the room?
Are there any actors?
There's one.
There's one over there.
There's a few here.
Usually as an actor, you know, like you get a script, you work on a background, and you don't get a visual. So here, because this is merging performance and animation, I get a picture. And so the approach was completely different. So I tried to analyze that picture, and then also the biggest question was the wound. So how, you know, when I work on a television set, I have a makeup artist who would basically change my face. So as an actor, I can't be kind of lazy because he's doing the work. Here, it was like, how do I speak with a wound like this? And how does it affect me physically? And then Tom Keegan, the other director who works with the actors, he sent me a tape of Nina Hagen, a German punk singer, who was sitting in a talk show. Oh, is this not working? Oh, who was sitting in a talk show today and spoke like this. And then he wanted me to bring this kind of voice in there. So you really start working from the outside in. And then there was the question, what's the voice before that? You know, how does she speak when she's from Engel? And then how does it change when she has this wound? And I can't, because we work, you know, 8 hours a day, still need to find a voice that sounds like that, but that doesn't hurt my vocal cords, because otherwise you have an actor that can't speak after 2 hours. So that was kind of the beginning of creating this character.
Yeah, how did you actually go about creating that character? I mean, did you give her all the background notes for her, or is it just this is the character, this is the script? Or how did
I think it's been a wonderfully collaborative process because it starts off with us kind of having some ideas, and of course we write the script and write the lines. But at that point, when we do it the first time, we don't know who the actor is, right? So we don't know anything on that side of things. And then once Nina came in, and she really embraced the character, and she started bringing in suggestions, like, how about we do this instead? Can we change this? And she contributed some of the most awesome stuff in the game, like in the new Colossus, the whole kind of when Frau Engel is like mouth raping the player with a gun.
that was improvised.
That's her idea. It wasn't improvised in that sense, but she brought the idea in a few days because we rehearse. We rehearse all the time, everything. So we're able to play around with stuff before we...
Oh, that's actually quite interesting. I was going to get to that because, I mean, there's different processes of how different kind of media is made. So basically, when you do theater, you sort of find the thing, but when you do film, very often you come onto the set and they say, well, stand over there, then go over here, do that. And very often for me, that's the case. So when I see this, how much room for creating a character is there? It seems like there is quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, the best thing that can happen as a developer and as a writer is you get to the set, and what happens is better than what you had in your mind, right? That's what you're going for. You want it to be at least as good as what you had in your mind, but if it's even better, then everybody wins. So, so it's important to be open to ideas as they come at you. And some of them you feel like this is not going to work, so let's not do that. But when a good idea comes your way, everyone's better off if you embrace it.
Yeah.
And the rehearsal periods are amazing for exploring that kind of stuff.
That's, sorry if I say that, that's better than in German films, because we don't have any rehearsal periods.
I have to say that, who has been on a motion capture stage? Can I see a hand of people who have been on a motion capture stage? Who has worked on motion capture? Okay, so
okay.
two
Who
people.
knows what motion capture is? Yeah, okay, so just,
okay.
Just want to see some hands, you know.
So basically, we are working in an empty room that we call the volume, that it, had all the cameras around it, and then I have a helmet on with a mic like this, a camera and a light, and then the suit with all the dots on. But what was amazing about this process is, and that's what most people don't know, because they think, oh, they're just animation, and then some people come in and do some voiceover. We created that in motion capture. So, and we created that like a theater production. We had table reads with all the actors. Brian Bloom, who is BJ, was there to play with me. We play and feed from each other. When I got really, really cruel, there have been moments where Brian was actually crying. And that is what the player becomes. And that there is a power in there for me too as an actor, because I'm acting with an audience of one, meaning you who play the game. And when you have actors like that, and these kind of rehearsals and that freedom to really develop a character, it becomes great, and you feel that when you play with the character, because it is complex, and it has the complexity. It's not just something evil, acted. It has the complexity of it in it, and it was felt by Brian, for example, or my poor daughter, Alyssa, Sigrun, because we really develop in rehearsal this kind of relationship. And I have to say something about Jens, that I worked with a lot of directors over my career, but he has the courage and the trust in his vision, and he gives you the freedom to add to that. And that opened me up to basically step into a character I was afraid of. Because for every German, it's not easy to play a Nazi.
I was just going to say, so first of all, how many shooting days did you have?
We had about 40 shooting days.
40 shooting days.
For if we take the new Colossus as an example, I think it was about the same on the new order, and then we have about 20 rehearsal days.
As just to let you know, there's twice as many as a regular Tatort, and Tatort doesn't have any rehearsal days. Just saying. So. And how did you go about creating that character? I mean, did it, as you say, it's layered, it has life in it, and of course
it was really difficult. So as an actor, there are different ways to approach a character, and I usually am an actor who works from inside out. So I asked myself, what needs to happen to me that I would act like a character? And I couldn't find it with this one, because she is sadistic, she's narcissistic, and she is a kind of a psychopath. But she likes, she feeds from pain of other people, and I couldn't find that in me. And there are tricks as actors. So because I had the wound, you can work on pain, for example. So I actually worked on a root canal, because it's so hurtful, and as an actor, I imagine that you get really aggressive. But it was a trick to do the first shooting days. And I thought, where is the essence? Where are these people acting? And here, in that stage, I need the director, because I'm still trying to find the role. And then we had a horrible scene where basically, okay, I'm going to say it, where I had to throw a baby against the wall. So I'm killing a baby. And I was like, I don't know from where to get this. I don't know. And there is also an acting technique where you can go from outside in. So I imagine the whole situation, because again, I'm in the volume, it's empty, there is nothing. Someone hands me a doll. But I imagined the whole situation, and I did the act. And I was so in that when I felt when you do something so evil, it was like a power rush. If you do something so evil and there's no immediate punishment by God or something, it gets you kind of a high. And I also could feel that I wanted more. It brings up a hunger in you. So I got an inside feeling for how this woman works. So you do something so evil and nothing happens, so you want to do the next evil thing and the next evil thing. And also she works from outside. As I said, she's a narcissist, so I don't see my daughter. My daughter is only an extension of myself. If my daughter is fat, I'm fat. So I need to make sure she's not fat. So in everything what Engel is doing is justified by her ideology. So I also made that experience that if you are that evil, you feel amazing. Because usually, you think, oh, if you're an evil person, you must feel shitty in some way. But I felt great. And then BJ came in, and I realized also that when you're in that mindset, you're chasing people. So I have an enemy, and all my passion is with the enemy. So it's like a love relationship. And that's what we then talked about. And then, I did a lot of research, and I've been to Auschwitz, and I saw that what people did, and also what women did. For example, Ilse Koch and other people. So we found actions of some of them that we then used, or when you have the essence of a character, that's basically what I want to say, then you built on that. And some of that stuff that came up, I was embarrassed about it. But still, you're kind of like serving the character. And that was the stuff we discussed. But I said, if you come with that mindset, then that leads to this. Because if you talk about the scene with the gun in the mouth, she's humiliating him. And in a way, Engel does a lot of stuff that men in power did to women. We just reversed it. Because in the same time, later, the Weinstein stuff came up, and I thought, yeah, that's exactly what he did to some women. So that also created the sexual component of Engel, which makes you then, as a player, be fascinated by her, attracted to her, and horribly terrified by her. But that was the really the work together on that. So
it's apparently, like, when I researched into it, it's crazy how much stuff there's actually going on underneath. I mean, we have that scene in the train, for example. Are you aware of the train scene? I think we have that on cue. In the train scene, so for me it was quite interesting because, of course, it's a game full of action. It's the whole time I'm shooting, I'm blasting people away. So how do I create like a different layer of like terror or fear or something? It's psychological, of course. Like in this moment when I'm completely helpless, sitting in front of Frau Engel, and she's testing whether I'm of pure blood. It's just scary, and I don't have my weapons with me.
Yeah.
Is that the first time we see her?
Yeah, this is her introduction. So this is from the first game, The New Order. That's also why things look a bit different here, because we had an upgraded engine for the second one. Yeah, this was such a fun scene to record as well.
Is it actually weird when you see yourself like that, as this animated version of yourself?
I don't know. It's more, it's like, even when I see myself in movies or something, that's, it's a character we created. I'm more looking at it as the whole creation and how it came out. I don't know if you have the scene where we are in motion capture. Yeah? Because that's really the collaboration of everybody. because I just bring the essence to it, and then someone else creates the hair and the face. And I just saw how her face also changed in different versions, you know?
Yeah, and there's such tremendous amount of work that goes in beyond what the characters are as well. Like, what's the lighting in there? How do you make the exterior stuff move in a credible fashion? We want rain on the windows. How do we do that? Blah, 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 all the atmosphere. And then, yeah, and you're also, it's just too much to go into every detail, but there is a tremendous amount of work that goes into a scene like that over a very long period, where you're like iterating, you're trying to figure out what can be improved, and then try to target those things and make them better over time. One weird thing was, like, in the script, because she shows you these cards, and you're supposed to pick which one makes you feel a certain thing, right? In the script, it just says what's on the cards, right? But when you have the scene working in first person, these cards are like super small, and it's hard to make out what's on them. So I did like 5 revisions, just changing the images on the cards to try and make them clearly readable and distinguishable from each other, and on whatever theme is whatever, you know, the choice is at the moment. So yeah, it's tons of that stuff that you, unless you really, really care, there's so many ways a thing like that can go wrong.
So, I mean, there's lots of technical stuff and performance stuff that comes together. One thing I'm quite interested in as well is the way of theater performance is different from film performance. How is motion capture performing?
What do you mean?
Like, I think I can answer that.
Okay.
Like, as an actor, so when you're on a stage, for example, I have costumes, and then people build whatever, a mountain on the stage, so that we all agree, okay, this is the queen, you know, in her castle or something. So I create that illusion. But what happens here is I look like a frog. I have this suit on with the dots. I have a helmet on. I have no makeup. I have lots of dots in my face that basically that you can see every wrinkle of my expression, because that needs to be fed into the computer. And the makeup, in this way, is the animator does that. So as an actor, I have to play my suit. I don't have boots on, but I have to walk. In this character, I have to walk like in boots. I don't have, a uniform. I have to walk like I have a uniform. I don't have weapons. What we work with are little plastic things that have no weight. So basically, I have to, so if I have a weapon, I have to play it. If I have a gun, it's really something like that. I have to play the whole thing that happens like a pantomime, and also the weight of a gun. And the next thing is that I have to imagine everything. So as an actor, I need to see the train. I need to see everything. My hands constantly have to deal with something invisible. And my body shows the complete emotion and the environment I'm in. So I play the train in my body. Maybe, if you're on a mountain and it's freezing, the actor has to play that. And that you don't need to do that on a movie set, because you're supported as an actor with all that. So I call what happens to an actor in motion capture is core acting, because I have to do everything. And that includes the other actors, because we have our close-up here. My camera is here. So if, for example, this character, Irene Engel, comes in and I have all these soldiers following me, and one of them is not present, we have to stop it. It's like a rehearsal in a theater now, because on film, you can't just film the different people. Here, it's an ensemble piece, because it's all filmed at the same time. So that's also why I was so amazed, because the actors in these games, or also the actors who do motion capture, A class. They know about the physicality, they know about their imagination, and they are able to alter their voices to the point to make that animation alive. And that was so fascinating to work on that.
Yeah, I'd just like to add that you don't necessarily have to do it the way that we do it. We tend to shoot everything as one scene as much as we can.
Yeah.
But you don't have to do that. You can do it kind of the movie way as well, like with a shot by shot. But we found that it's much more efficient to do the scene. Well, it depends on the scene, right? Because if it's a first-person thing where the player controls the camera, then you know, you kind of have you're not dealing with shots, so you can't break it up. So then it has to be a scene. But if it's more of a cinematic scene where you have shots, you can shoot it like a movie. But we choose not to do that because partly it's much more efficient in terms of recording time, assuming you have the people who can handle it. Because you can get through a scene really quickly, and that means you can do more takes. So you can experiment more, and you can reach a better result at the end. And then that also gives you a tremendous freedom afterwards, because what you have then is like the whole scene with all of the characters in it in the perfect take, and then you go in and do the camera work. So we have the virtual camera, so we can revisit the scene after the fact, and all of the performances are always the same and always spectacular. And then you're just kind of playing around over and over again, trying different shots and different angles, and kind of building the camera work as a separate project. And that's hugely cool and helpful.
Cool.
Oh, and also just one thing. We had every morning, we had physical training and vocal training.
I mean, it looks like it's very tiring. It looks like it's very physical all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also because we have rehearsed and we've done so much preparation work, the whole crew is very sort of streamlined. So we're able to move from scene to scene very rapidly. So we're always shooting basically in a shooting day. Like there's very little downtime, and so depending on, but I guess the plus is that we have so many characters. So some days we'll have a tremendous throughput of actors in the studio, and that kind of allows some actors then to have breaks. But if it's scheduled in a way so that an actor is working the whole day, then that's a very, very packed schedule for sure.
Crazy.
That's why we had a strike. The SAG-AFTRA, the Screen Actors Guild, had actually a strike during one of the games that we did, because actors been so exhausted because they lost their voices. You know, we have a lot of people.
The strike was because of Wolfenstein?
No, not Wolfenstein, because that work can be so hard.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it can be very exhausting if you're not doing it right.
And they did it right.
we do have a small clip here of the motion capture process, a very small one. Not very good sound.
Sie müssen diese Dame schon entschuldigen, aber sie ist sehr stolz darauf, diese Bilderrätsel mit wildfremden Männern zu spielen.
Diese Bilder. Urlaubsfotos, alte Kriegsaufnahmen. Gar nichts. Davon abgesehen kann ich ein Nicht-Arier mit bloßem Auge erkennen. Du etwa nicht? Lassen Sie ihn gehen, Bernhard.
So you do all your shooting of these things in Hollywood? Because, I mean, you know, lots of Germans here who could play excellent Nazis in Berlin.
Well, we do a lot of German recordings in Germany as well, but that's mostly on the voice side, so when it's voice only. The reason why we shoot the performance capture in LA is because our...
Yes. Okay, thank you. Yeah, we show that in a bit. Okay, well, keep it running. It's fine. Yeah.
Anyway, the reason why we do it in LA is because that's a serious injury.
It's a bit distracting. Yeah. Okay.
We do it in LA because the talent pool there is so vast, and we have a ton of different nationalities in the game. Like, it's not just Germans, surprisingly. It's a lot of different nationalities, and the talent pool in Los Angeles is just mind-bogglingly huge. So so it makes sense to shoot there. It's basically, I mean, you could fly them somewhere else, I suppose, but it's more cost efficient to do it in LA.
Did your work relationship change between part 1 and part 2 and part 3 maybe?
It did change in the sense that when we went to write the second game, we knew Nina, and we could really write something that played to her strongest strengths. And that's always hugely helpful, like when you hear the actual voice in your head as you're writing it. That is super cool. Just have to add something about one thing about what the actors have to deal with in performance capture is also when they use this, when they're wearing the suits, there's like they're very exposed because it's like a skin tight, it's like a superhero costume. So it's not like in a movie where you're wearing whatever the costumes that they give you. Here it's like you're essentially like naked, but and so it takes a lot for. I mean, you have to have really strong actors who can deal with that and just power through. And yeah, so we spend a lot of time in the casting as well, making sure that we find the absolute right people for the parts. I think that's an incredibly important factor in doing this successfully, is casting right. So we tend not to, we don't settle until we find something that we feel is 100% right for the part.
Mm-hmm. Did you have like a favorite moment when you were doing this thing? Was there one thing when it really clicked for you, this entire process?
No, I think when the moment was like when I had the essence, and then it started to be really fun because then we could really collaborate on that, and I could bring in ideas and stuff. And I think the whole process is just amazing, you know, but it takes a lot of discipline. But as I said, we had a lot of support, like we had vocal training, physical training, like a lot of people have a martial arts background. I have a martial arts background, so that helped me.
Okay.
With rolling, with fighting, with handling certain weapons. I mean, something like the beheading wasn't easy, and then he helped me with, because I had a real heavy, what do you call that? The
axe?
The axe, yeah. So, and then also that was based on the picture. He gives me a picture before, and then I basically see on the picture what I have to imagine, because there's the volume, there's nothing in there. But these kind of things help. And it has a lot to do with kind of like also choreography in many ways, and a rhythm. And like this other scene, I don't know if we have that, but basically, you know, when I'm scolding the daughter and I'm humiliating BJ, and at the same time I want to behead the other resistance fighter, it's been all nuances. You know, I'm speaking English, then I'm switching to German, then I do this to her, then I fight, and then it has a lot to do also with timing, because we film the whole thing. There is not ever a, you know, kind of a break in it. And every moment, you know, the whispering and how far do I go there, because I'm knowing now I'm playing with the player or with BJ, and then how do I do these movements? It took a lot of discipline, but when it works, I just feel, it feels amazing. Yeah. But Tom and both of them, you know, they cut it if it's not perfect. So it takes a lot of, you know.
Yeah, I mean, so for me, it's like the first time you do a scene with an actor that you haven't worked with before, like the first time you reach what you want and you cut and you have the take, that for me is an amazing feeling. But I have to say that beheading scene, I think that's like the difficulty of that scene is so incredibly high. And the potential is so high. Like when you read it in the script, it feels like, oh, this could turn out so amazing if we pull it off. And then it's like super complicated because it's like, I think it's 10 actors in the scene, and it's like 8 minutes long. And so there's like tons of lines, speeches, and everybody has to do their things at exactly the right time. And it's just very tightly choreographed. Like someone goes and picks up the axe while this is happening. They have to arrive at the exact time and hand it over, blah, blah, blah. And everything has to flow seamlessly because while it's possible to, after the fact, go into the scene and sort of make edits and adjustments, it's if you end up with a lot of those problems, then that compounds into an insane workload that you have to deal with in post. So everybody wins if it's like super tight when you record it, because then you don't have to go in and mess around with it. So pulling that scene off and like seeing what Nina did with it and how everything just came together, and it ends up being better than I could ever have hoped just from reading the script. That's just so insanely creatively rewarding. And then afterwards, it was like, because we had never done a scene that long with that many actors, so we couldn't open the data because the file was too big. So there was like, oh my God, did we lose everything? But then they bought some supercomputer to be able to open it, so it worked out in the end.
Is there anything that you would do differently in the future, or that you could give as an advice? Is there anyone working in motion capturing on some project at the moment here in Germany? There isn't, eh? Yeah, you are? Is there any advice you could give that lady over there?
Yeah. Is there anything in particular you're wondering about?
Well, how does actually the communication in this work? Because I don't really know how to communicate. Like, if you think of animation principles, all of this, animation. Oh, thank you. The movement of the character and all that needs to be on point. Like as we saw in the video, there are only specific movements with the hands and not so much around. How do you actually communicate this? Is that you, Nina, for example, actually, with the rehearsal, learn to know, okay, with this word, I have to move like this. With this word, I'll have a hand throw or something.
Yeah.
And how actually do you, how do you talk about it?
Yeah, and oftentimes as you're writing it, you don't know it either. You kind of have an image in your head, but that's drastically different from what can actually occur in reality. Because people might not be able to move that fast, or Jesus Christ, there's something in the way here, or you thought about, there's so many factors that affect it. So the way we structure it is, first we write it, and then that gets broken down into the animation design. So it's like, this is what the scene is, here are all the props that it includes, blah, blah, blah. You kind of map it out. And then we do something we call a blocking video, which is just the people on the team acting out the scene in a horrible manner.
I looked at those.
Yeah, those will never be revealed to the public because they are the most awful things you can see. It's like literally like a really horrible like school play or something. It's so like the most introverted game developers trying to act. So it's like it's beyond horrible. But anyway, those exercises are incredibly useful because then you figure out, oh shit, this isn't working at all. They have to come from over there, and you kind of rewrite the scenes as you're doing that. Some scenes just work, but some things don't, and maybe it shouldn't be an axe, maybe it should be this thing instead, and how do we make that work? So we figure that out, and we shoot a blocking video. And then when we get to rehearsals with the actors, the first thing we do is show them the blocking video, which serves partly the purpose of them really quickly assessing, okay, this is what's going on and this is what's happening. And it's also a great confidence boost for them because they feel like, I can do this so much better than these idiots. So it's a good laugh and everybody enjoys it in the room. So that is like the baseline then for the rehearsals. And then during rehearsals with the actual actors, we figure out even more stuff and we lock everything down. And once we feel like, okay, this is in good shape now, everybody knows what they're doing, we film that again in rehearsals. So when we come to shoot day, and we're going to shoot the scene, we revisit the rehearsal, because maybe that was 2 weeks ago now, and they don't really remember everything. And so then we look at it again, and we go through it. And in the time between the rehearsal and the shoot day, both like me and Tom might have ideas on how to improve stuff, and the actors have been thinking about it too, so they might also have ideas. And so once we get to the shoot day, everyone is as prepared as we can be, basically.
Cool.
That's kind of how we... But then the other side of that is, of course, how do you communicate when you're actually shooting? And that is its own art form. And that's not like... That's something you really have to study and learn and practice. Because someone like Tom, who is an amazing director of actors, but he's been doing it for, 40 years or something, or 35 at least. So that level of experience makes a huge difference, and you can't really expect to be there if you're just starting out or if you're doing it not so often, But yeah, that's a craft in itself.
I think that's really smart that Jens worked together with Tom, who has a background as an actor and a theater director. And because sometimes as an actor, we spoke about that yesterday, you want the actor to do something and the actor is not doing it.
Yes, that's the main problem when you're recording. You want them to do something, but they're not doing it.
And then when you tell an actor a result-oriented thing, like, just be sexy or something, they freeze. You get very bad acting. So you basically have to give them words, seduce more or be more threatening. And that basically, then they can use their own intelligence in order to bring that to the table. But even that is sometimes, you don't find the word so quickly because you just do this, and they don't. Yeah. So if you want to work with actors, there's a wonderful book by Judith Weston, Acting for Directors. And it's also interesting, I think, as a game developer, because she describes very well how characters are working. And also for me, I need a pre-life, meaning I need to know where I am and where I come from, all these things. So I think that's good to learn, or be as smart as Jens and get a really good theater director on your side who helps immediately sometimes with a little inspiration. And then the actor understands that, and then he can own it again and bring something to the table that comes out of his essence, and then has the complexity again and the authenticity that you need, that you have a compelling character.
Yeah, but then you also have to figure out what is, if you're looking for that partner in directing, what makes a good director? And that's not an easy problem to solve either. Yeah, I think the book is called Directing Actors, but it's very interesting and cool, so check that out.
So unfortunately, because I've been giving science from the side, we unfortunately only have 45 minutes, crazily enough, for this talk that should go on for another hour. But I'm sure, so I say thank you very much to Jens, thank you very much to Nina. I'm sure if you have questions, you'll find them around here.
Thank you.
But before we go, Nina, could you, I don't know, scream at the audience and tell them to die or something? I think we would all like that and have that.
Scream at the audience?
Yeah, tell them to die because they're filth, or...
In German, what do you want to hear? The usual.
Can we involve the word Dreckskerl?
So, yeah, Dreckskerle. I don't know.
Tell him he's an ex-student of mine. You can tell him he's useless. He just finished his bachelor. You can shout at him. He's used to it.
It's nothing he never told me.
Exactly.
Ja.
He's used to it.
Ja, das ist schwer, wenn man so ein Verlierer ist. Ausmerzen.
Dankeschön.